What's happening, everybody, and welcome back to the Funky Brain Podcast. My name is Dennis, and this is my funky brain up here. There's a lot going on up here, but I'm doing better than I used to be, and I hope you're doing great today, too. And our guest today, she's a wonderful woman, an author, teacher, and mental health awareness advocate who was diagnosed at the age of 20 with rapid cycling bipolar disorder with schizoaffective episodic delusions. Today, she lives to share how she stayed afloat in this ever-cycling existence and to help others understand they can too. And I love that part, and that's why I do what I do. And it was while she was curled up in the corner of her parents' couch following a psychotic episode, incapacitated, over-medicated, and I can't wait to hear more about this, and unable to keep her coveted job as a high school teacher, that she found her way out of her own hell with a pen and paper. Ms. Amanda Grieme. How are you doing today, Amanda?
I couldn't be better. I'm so happy to be here.
And how's 2021 going for you?
Struggle for me. Yes, of course. Everybody has struggle right now. But struggle, I did lose a job, and that's okay. It just happened the way I was a teacher at a middle school. But it makes me more creative. It was all COVID related. And 2021, I have nothing but optimism. So.
Yeah, that's a great attitude. I mean, I think I've done a couple episodes, both with people and solo episodes of the podcast, talking about it could be a time for hurt or a time for growth. You know, we can use this time as more pain, or we can use it as a growing experience, because we're locked in, right? And things are starting to change now, but we have a choice. It's like we can use it to bring us down, or we can use it to lift us up.
Absolutely. And we know, so well, Dennis, like I know that our energy directly affects the person next to us, the person across the room, So why not just keep it elevated? I feel like we're ascending anyway. I really do. It's a major energy shift I'm sensing, but keep your energy up here and things will go better for you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, awesome advice. I hope everybody listens to that. And so can you please share with our listeners some of the stories that you have and what got you to where you are today? Like what happened, what it was like, and what it's like now?
I'm so happy because really it's like unbelievable. You go through the bumps in life and you get to the other side. And if you're blessed enough to get to the other side, you open your eyes and say, wow, I can help so many people because I'm a survivor. And that's exactly what happened to me when I was I was just a crazy teenager, a lot of self-medication going on, etc. And when I went off to college, it was exacerbated, my mental illness that I was not aware of at that time, exacerbated by drugs and alcohol. I was always one of those people who's very dual. I was able to be a straight A student, and then except for math, there's my exception. And then on the other hand, I just completely fell apart, very dual. So when I was about 20 years old, it was suggested to me that I visit a psychiatrist. And that was when I was diagnosed for the first time as bipolar. And when we talked about the extent of the bipolar disorder, it turned into, oh, you also have schizoaffective disorder. And it's exacerbated by drugs and alcohol, which I was very comfortable with and transparent about using. So that was the beginning. For me in the beginning, the 20-year-old in me, that maturity level in my life, I just saw the added pharmaceuticals that the doctor prescribed as party favors. That's about where my mentality was. I thought, oh, fun. So what happens if you take lithium and then you drink a bottle of wild turkey? And I'm being very transparent because that's just the way it was. And so that's the way I was living. And it wasn't until 10 years later, and I was 30 years old, and I had landed a really great job. I finally took my diagnosis seriously. I could no longer live in duality. I had two separate lives going on. I was I was a partier, and I didn't take my medication nor my diagnosis seriously. And it caught up to me. And I started having delusions in school while I was teaching, which is pretty darn scary. I had the most remarkable supervisor who to this day is one of my dearest people to my heart, Stephanie, who I actually went to her and said, it was in February, went to her and said, Stephanie, I have to go home today. And she's like, are you okay? You don't look well. And I said, I'm hearing things. It's just, I said it. It was just very honest. I could have made up any excuse in the world. And I ended up driving to my parents' house. It's like safety. And my parents, I did not live with them. I had my own apartment in another part of New Jersey, but I drove there, walked in, sat down on their couch, and that's where I remained for 3 months. I had a complete psychotic breakdown. Just, we're talking all lights off. I just dimmed. I couldn't move. I was almost catatonic at times. And that was my saving grace. That moment, I went to their house. My parents are amazing people. I took a leave from school, and that's where I met Dr. Freedman. Now, Dr. Freedman, that's his alias name, but Dr. Freedman is a psychiatrist who made me get over myself and said, hello, young lady, or not so young lady at that point, get over yourself. This is a real deal. This is like you have a kidney disease. This is as if you have a heart disease. You have to take this seriously. You will prevail if you face this head on. Stop hiding, stop pretending, stop masking it with drugs. It's real and it can be treated. And guess what? I did. It was a learning process, and it was a long process. The 3 months felt like a year, but I started to see him. I started to go to therapy, and I took many meds, which I've written about at length about what they do and the deleterious effect and the things that have happened as a result. And I've come to a point in my life where I'm it requires very little medication. I use tons of vitamins, healthy living, eating, and it's really great. I require very minimal. I know exactly what I need. It's not even an antipsychotic, which they're awful. I call them little blue and pink imagination slayers. So the story is, while I was in that state of mind at my parents' house, and as I was healing through talking to Dr. Freimer and his therapist and taking the proper medication and not drinking incessantly and taking whatever else I got my hands on, I started to write a lot. I've always been a writer, but I started to write letters, apology letters to people who I felt like I had done wrong, to people I loved who were here or gone, my grandparents, my grandmothers, specifically, who I was very close to, who had mental issues of their own. So I started writing letters, and they were so cathartic. And I would just, to my best friends who I thought they just think I'm insane, like they can't find me for 6 months at a time. And then all of a sudden I show up. When I started to look at myself in hindsight, I thought, wow. And when I got to the crux of these letters, it was a whole book in and of itself. And I was really back to a place where I could work, function, talk to people, leave the house in Pittstown, New Jersey. I got a job to get slowly back into the world of the living and work world in a English pub where we made our own beer. And it was such a fun experience. And I felt so good about myself and about this new me I was discovering, that I was able to look at these letters in clarity and say, oh my God, these letters could help so many people. And I decided to fashion a frame story around the letters. And that's the book I wrote in 2009 and published, called Dear Prudence, like the Beatles song. And it's a little nod to letters, Dear Prudence. And it was also illustrated by one of my 14-year-old creative writing students, Amanda, her name is as well. I call her Little Mander. She's a remarkable person, and a couple of other contributors. So that was then, and that was how I healed myself. I literally wrote myself out of that negative mental state. And it's just been a learning process ever since.
There's so many things. I was writing things down as you were talking. And, when you were talking about our saving grace, our greatest pain sometimes becomes our best blessing, our biggest blessing. When we talk about like sobriety and recovery, the pain is what gets us to that point where we're willing to do things differently. So for our listeners out here that are struggling with bipolar disorder, and or any other, versions of that, share some of the tools that we can use to navigate through that when life gets tough.
I've come up with a methodology, actually. Ta-da! The H.O.L.D.F.A.S.T method. Those are my husband's knuckles on there. They hold fast. And of course, he loathes the fact that I photographed his knuckles. Yes, because he too has struggled with a multitude of things. I remember one night sitting and thinking, when a parent of a student, I had an 8th grade student they were dealing with some mental stuff, some funky brain stuff. The mother came to me because she had read one of my books and came to me and asked me for advice. And I remember sitting up late at night and looking at Frank's hands, the H.O.L.D.F.A.S.T. And we always used to say honest, open, logical. He said honest, open, logical discussion for all schools of thought. That was his acronym for H.O.L.D.F.A.S.T. And I was like, I said, that really is kind of like how I do it and how I work through what I work through every day. It's a process, but it's not difficult for me anymore because it's my new process. So that's where this came from. Hold fast, ride out life with bipolar disorder. It's a way to cope with a lot of things. I think it may also help. You tell me this after I'm finished, how you feel it works with addiction as well, because I've coped a lot with that, and so has Frank. H is for honest. In order to get through anything, you have to be transparent. Transparency is the key. It's the key. You have to just face it. O is for open a dialogue, explore your illness. You have to speak. It has to come out of here to the world. L is for look to your heart. You have to get in that space down here, not your cluttered mind. D is for discern triggers, the triggers that send you down the rabbit hole. Discern your triggers with logic, which is really hard to do sometimes. You have to actually take something, even if you don't want to look at it logically, and look at it logically. Discern triggers with logic for clarity. That's what D is for. F is for face anxiety and dive in. A is for anticipate fear. You have to know it's coming. You know you're going to be fearful, and that's how you get through it. You actually have to feel it. It's right there. You hold on to it, then you expect it, you embrace it, and you have to experience it. If you're feeling the fear and actually feeling what it is that is making you fearful, you can let it go. There's nothing to fear. It's gone. Let it go. And S is for step up to your family challenges, which is something that I know all of us have. Communicating with family members in general is just a challenge at times. So S is for step up to your family challenges, rather than, I guess the way I could translate that is rather than ignoring them, or rather than running away from them, or rather than pretending they aren't there. You got to step up. And T is so important. H.O.L.D.F.A.S.T method is for trust the process, and trust yourself. You have to trust yourself. You have to be like, yeah, I'm doing this and I'm making the right decision. You have to put that trust in yourself in order to trust the process of healing and moving forward. Always move forward. Forget about the past.
You know, it's funny. So in my book, I talk about people always say, like, how do I get sober? How do I overcome my challenges? How do I become successful? How do I have good relationships? How do I become healthy? How stands for honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness.
Oh, nice. I love it. Acronyms are great.
You can't solve a problem until you admit it exists. So if you're not honest, I'm not talking about honest, like don't steal that $20 and don't do that, but honest with myself. Is everything okay? If it's not, let's talk about it. And now we can change it. We can't solve a problem we can't admit exists. And then open-mindedness, being open to saying, hey, you know what? The way I'm doing things isn't working. Maybe there's something better out there, a better way to live.
Totally.
And then willing to do those things to change my life.
Absolutely. Acronyms are so important. And they help people if they have something tangible to hold on to and be like, okay, the step, okay, honesty. I need to be honest. I need to be transparent. I need to open my mouth and say, I'm not okay. Someone help. It's okay. You can reach out and you can talk to people about it. So you have to open a dialogue. I love it. And it's funny, our indiscretions and our meaning you and I and everyone else who is doing what we're doing in the mental health awareness venue has led us, like we've been to the pits of our own hell, right? But it's led us to be like, you know what? Thank you for that experience. Thank you. Thank you for all of the pitfalls. Thank you for the negativity. Thank you for the addiction. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. Because now I'm here and I've risen above it and I'm floating up here and I can hold your hand and explain how to get through.
Awesome. Tell us about your podcast.
I have a podcast on Mental Health News Radio Network called Hold.F.A.S.T. Radio. Ride out life with mental illness, and specifically bipolar disorder. It's I've had a blog talk radio show for years called, initially it was Dear Prudence Radio, life advice to help you cope. And then it was Paging Dr. Freedman, which is the second book I wrote, the second novel. It's a rewrite of Dear Prudence. I'll get into that in a moment. And Kristen Walker, Sunanta Walker, who I adore, she reached out to me and said, you'd be great on our network. Would you like to join? Of course I did. And now I'm on the Mental Health News Radio. And it's blog talk, or it's a Hold.F.A.S.T. Ride Out Life with Bipolar Disorder. It's just anything goes. I like to call it Wing It Radio. But everything has your health in mind, the listener's health and well-being and just things to make life a little sweeter.
And what is the Dear Prudence you wanted to bring up?
Dear Prudence was the book I wrote. I was talking about that I wrote myself out of my own hell. And that was in 2009. And I published that and was very proud. 10 years later, oddly enough, in 2019, I had another setback. And this was not a mental health setback. I fell down a flight of stairs and had a gnarly concussion. I fell down the steps in the middle of the night, just going down to let my puppy out, and knocked myself out completely. I missed a couple weeks of teaching. And during that time, and it was a months that I was going for rehab, it was just, I could not get my brain together. It was so squirrely. It was like being drunk without being drunk for 3 months. It was really strange. It was very unpleasant. If you've ever been there, I'm sure you can relate. But you know what? I don't sit well. I don't rest well. I never have. I like to do things and keep myself moving and contribute. I remember picking up Dear Prudence and looking at it and just admiring the illustrations and saying, this story has totally changed. This story is a different story now. I was like, oh, so I rewrote the book.
Nice.
And I rewrote the whole novel and I changed it to Paging Dr. Freedman. And it's a nod, paying homage to Dr. Freimer, who was my doctor who really saved me from myself.
That's great. Yeah, our stories change. Hopefully we're evolving as life goes on. And if you're not, then I challenge that there's room to grow.
Yes, change is good.
I just really latched onto this principle kind of recently and over the last few months. It's like, if I'm really stressed out and living in fear, you know what I find? The world has changed and I haven't changed along with it.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, well, it's like, I'm moving along. I finally figured out how to get through this phase of my life. And then I kind of hang out. I don't continue to grow. And then along the way, now I'm not being as successful or as productive as I was. And now I start wondering, like, why aren't things going well? Why aren't they going as well as I want them to, or the way that I think they're supposed to be going? And it's because the world changed around me and I didn't adapt with it. And so now it keeps going back into some sort of level of pain before I'm willing to see, oh, wait, I need to pivot now because the world changed and I didn't even realize it.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it's cool to
really
grow up. It gets painful growing up in your 30s and 40s and beyond.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, but you know what? And I love this meme. I've talked about it on the show before. It's that, you know what? The older I get, the more I realize that nobody really knows what's going on.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're not alone.
We're all just kind of winging it. We're like, let's try this today. Let's try this, and maybe this will work. Maybe that'll work. A few people have things figured out or have more money or more this or more that. But at the end of the day, we're all just kind of getting through.
It's like, well, I'll float on. Okay. I always think of that Modest Mouse song, Float On. Because it's true. We are just kind of like in the ethers, all of us.
Yeah.
Everyone we encounter has their own thing going on and their own questions. And I love what you said about the world changed, but you're unhappy because you haven't changed with it. Something I really like to talk about, and I'm not going to get too metaphysical. We could do that some other time.
Sure.
The energy around me specifically and around my family and around you and around everyone we interact with, it's in flux. It ebbs and flows. And I feel like if I don't go with it, if I don't go with the flow, for lack of a better description, and that's exactly what you're talking about. You have to evolve with the ever-evolving energy around us. Does that make any sense?
That's exactly the truth. Yeah, it's like, is my will in alignment with God's will, whatever God is, right? Yeah. So when it's not, when I have my will, when it's Dennis's will, trying to run the show and do this and do that and do my plans that I have in place to make it go the way I want it to, and it rarely goes that way. But when I'm like, all right, well, I heard this early on in sobriety, it was like, is my will in alignment with God's will? When it is, then things just go better. And
they do.
When the plans I make don't work out, then it's like, oh, okay, well, what's next? Rather than, oh my God, this sucks. What the hell? The whole world's against me and I'm going to die now.
I know. It's truly, you're absolutely right. It's like, let go and let God. You got to do it. Years ago, my family doctor said that to me, and I was like, oh God, here we go. I remember feeling cynical about that comment. And then as I've gotten older and have evolved in thinking and just started looking at things in hindsight, I was like, let go and let God. That's the sweetest thing a person has ever said to me. It is the most meaningful thing. It's true.
Well, it goes into the T in your H.O.L.D.F.A.S.T, and that's trust the process.
Yes.
Trust, turn it over. Be like, all right, here's what my plans are. Here's how I'm going to do things. And then I'm going to turn it over.
Yep. You hand it right over to God, whoever God is to you. Yeah. Universe, Mother Nature, God, whatever. Just hand it over. Trust it, and it will work out. It will. It always does.
It always does.
Be positive, and it's like all about hope. I get sad when I hear people say, "Oh, abolish hope." It just it's like, no, bullshit. Hope is where it's at. It's like what we have to give and what we have to share. It's a real thing, and it's a step. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it is good stuff. Awesome stuff, Amanda. Thank you so much. So if people want to get in touch with you, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah. You can find me on Facebook. You can go to H.O.L.D.F.A.S.T Radio, and you can find all of my links right there on H.O.L.D.F.A.S.T Radio. That's H.O.L.D.F.A.S.T Radio, Write Out Life with Bipolar Disorder. You can find my books on Amazon. I have a couple promotions going on right now on Samcart. Are you familiar with Samcart?
I am not.
Samcart is a venue to sell things. And so I've been doing a lot of my own promoting. I have a course coming up that I would love to have some participants in. I have put a big fat 50% off coupon for anybody who's watching your show today, Dennis. It's based on the Hold-Fast method. It's called, here's my workbook. Ta-da!
Loving your bipolar kin.
Yes, it's for people who don't know what to do with their bipolar loved ones.
Awesome.
And it's based on the Hold-Fast method, but it's based on the Hold-Fast method, 8 steps to write out life with bipolar disorder. But I have a unique perspective because it's a third person perspective of bipolar disorder from my first person perspective, because I'm married to a bipolar person as well. So those are all ways to find me, or you can just email me, Grieme, Grieme author @gmail.com.
Thanks again. I appreciate it. Great talk. You're awesome. Thanks everybody for tuning in to the Funky Brain podcast. I hope you heard something useful today that's going to change your life. And I'll talk to you soon. Have a beautiful day. One of the most common questions I get is, how do I become more successful? I see everybody else getting where they want to be in life, but I'm still stuck. There could be many reasons, but the main reason I find in people being stuck is lack of focus and, of course, accountability. So there are 3 key steps to focused success. Number 1 is intention. Taking action with intention. Intentions should be extremely exciting and reasonable, not umbrella goals. They need to be realistic and achievable. Like if you're making 50 grand a year and you want to make $1 million a year, that's probably not going to happen right away. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just probably not going to happen next year. But what if we can get you to 100 grand next year? That would be double your income. That's awesome, right? And it's a huge achievement. Once we set these goals and we're intentional about the steps to get us there, then we have something concrete to work on. And now that's exciting. And they need to be in writing, not just in your brain. Remember, my brain is my problem. I think all the time, all over the place. I need to write them down and get them concrete. Now that's intention. The second step for focused success is gratitude. Create gratitude statements that are fun and passionate, but truthful and focused in reality. So if you're making 50 grand a year and you want to make 100 grand, then say, I'm grateful for the work I get to do to keep me living my life so I can get to my goal. I'm grateful for eating well and exercising so I can get to my goal of losing 50 pounds. I'm grateful for my kids, my partner, my house, my pool, my car. Stay in gratitude. There's no better way to stay positive and on track than living in gratitude. Third step for focused success is action. And action steps are everything. Let me repeat that. Action steps are everything. Once we clearly define our goal, our one thing, then we can create specific action steps to take on a regular basis to help get us there. And here's a huge piece. They must be uncomfortable, or we cannot expect change. They cannot be effortless, or there will be no change. Remember, the way that I've been doing things, my work habits, my drinking habits, my eating habits, whatever, they got me stuck here. So I need to do things a little differently than I have been doing, or I probably won't see different results. I mean, think about it. If I could have achieved these things on my own, I probably would have by now. So these goals, they need to be measurable. They need to be put on a timeline. Monday at 10 a.m., I'm doing this. Tuesday at noon, I'm doing this. When I'm working with my clients, we have lots of homework. And when I ask them, when will you have this done? And they say something like, maybe by the end of next week, I say, that's bullshit. Please have that to me by tomorrow morning, tomorrow by dinner at the latest. This is how you get results. The old you without an accountability partner would say, maybe by the end of next week. And then nothing would ever get done. That's how we got stuck here in the first place. Does that make sense? So hopefully some of this rings true with you and you're ready to make drastic changes in your life. If you don't know where to begin, or if you're looking for that push to get you to the next level, please reach out. Give me a call and set up a free session to start radically changing your life forever. The most satisfactory years of your life lie ahead. Life isn't over, it's just starting. I'll talk to you soon. Have a beautiful day today.